That was a horrible place to stop. I'll even admit that. So, here we go. Chapter 45, Unwelcomed Guests. Molly lay on the foyer floor. Her feet and hands were tied with coarse rope which cut like sandpaper against her skin. She struggled against the binds, trying to find a loose spot to slip her hand through, but none would reveal itself. The room around her was now a wasteland of overturned suitcases and torn curtains and broken furniture. "Molly, I'm scared," said a voice in her ear. It was Penny, tied up like the rest of them. Her glasses had fallen off her face and were lying on the floor. "Hush, love." Molly forced a smile. "You'll be fine." A sort of cascading crash hit her ears. It sounded as if one of the men were pulling books down from the shelves in the study. Unlike on their previous visit, Figs and Stubbs had wasted no time with threats and ultimatums. They had tied up the family almost immediately and began ransacking the house. "Sounds like they're having fun," Kip muttered from her other side. He had at first tried to hide in the stables, but Fig had found him and put him next to Molly. This at least allowed them to talk openly without startling the others. "We have to get out of here," Molly whispered, too quietly for Penny to hear. "When the sun goes down, the night gardener will be here, and something tells me he'll still be angry." She craned her neck, looking through the open front door. The sun over the trees was a boiling red, the last gasps of daylight quickly draining from the sky. "So much for our simple plan," said Kip. Figs and Stubbs wandered back into the foyer with a casual, almost friendly air. Long splinters and bits of cushion fluff clung to their shabby coats. Fig had the Windsor portrait in his hands, holes punched into the canvas. "Look at this, Stubbs," and he pushed his head through a hole above Constance's body. "Ain't I pretty?" he said, making kissing sounds. "Well, that does it for the study," Stubbs said, wiping his hands. "Next stop, the bedrooms." He looked at Master Windsor, who had blood on his face from where they had struck him. "Unless you just want to save us the trouble." "I already told you, I have nothing," Bertrand sputtered. Stubbs cocked his head to one side. "And I told you, a man don't leave his house without squirreling away a few earthly possessions." Fig pulled something from Constance's open trunk. "How's these for earthly possessions?" and he waved a pair of stockings over his head. "This wasn't our agreement," Bertrand said. "You weren't supposed to be here until tomorrow." "Well, that's the thing," Stubbs said, scratching his head. "You see, when you've been in this business as long as me, you learn a few things, like how folks tend to disappear right when they're expecting you. So we like to pop in a day or two early." He propped a foot on one of the suitcases, which I think you'll agree is a wise precaution. The grandfather clock, which had been opened but not overturned, rang 7 times. Bertrand exchanged a look with Molly to show that he too understood the importance of getting out of the house before nightfall. He turned back to the men, putting on a smile that might have passed for charm in another circumstances. "My good sirs, I owe you both an apology. You've come all the way out here and I've been incredibly rude. Please take everything, furniture, clothes, the whole house. Only please let us go." Stubbs stood over him, his belly protruding from his coat. "You're awful eager to go riding out in a dusty fog." He drew a handkerchief from his vest and Molly caught a glimpse of a large knife at his belt. "You know, Fig," he said, polishing his monocle, "I've heard that some rich folks sew money right into their clothes to hide it from robbers and brigands and the like." Fig stood up, joining his stout companion. "Well, now that you mention it, I think I've heard that too." "Well then," Stubbs said, "perhaps this merits a more thorough search." He drew the knife from his belt and handed it to Fig as one might pass a brush to a painter. Fig took the knife, flipping it casually in his hand. He paced the length of the room, pointing the blade at each person as he passed. Duck, 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 goose. He stopped at Constance. The woman was only barely conscious, stared at the man towering over her. Bertie? Bertie? No, Master Windsor pulled against his bindings. Not her. She's ill. Well, then she won't put up a fight, Fig said, kneeling, and with a flourish he removed the blanket from over her body and cut a long slice along the side of her mattress, and feathers spilled onto the floor. Tell me when I'm getting warm, he said, and he thrust a hand inside her mattress, searching for hidden valuables. Constance recoiled, closing her eyes. Bertrand thrashed like a madman. Get away from her, he screamed. Temper, temper, temper. Stubbs swung a boot, hitting him square in the face. Bertrand's head snapped back, and when Molly saw his face again, there was blood coming from his nose. Please, he whimpered. Molly studied the expressions of the two men. At once gleeful and grim, they looked like they would be more than happy, to do this all night long, and Molly didn't have all night. She searched the floor for a bit of broken glass or a stray nail, anything she might use to cut the rope. She again noticed the blade tucked into the back of Fig's belt. If she could just distract him, she might be able to get it. She closed her eyes and dug deep within her to find the part of herself that could just possibly save them. When she opened her eyes again, they shone with a spark of determination. Had enough? Stubbs said, striking Bertrand again, 'cause I could go on all night. Hit him all you want, Molly called over the din. He ain't going to tell you a thing. These rich folks would rather die than lose a penny to those beneath them. Silence fell over the room, and she felt every person look at her. You want to take his place? Stubbs said, turning. Molly raised a coy brow, as if to imply she might enjoy such attentions. You and me ain't like the Windsors, she said, a hint of song in her voice. I could tell the first time we met. We wasn't born with silver spoons in our mouths. We gotta take what we can, however we can, and hang the rest. At this, Stubbs gave an involuntary nod. Molly fought back a smile. It was working. Take me with you, and I'll show you the money myself. How does that sound? Stubbs screwed up his mouth, clearly at war with his instincts. What would a little maid like you know about secret loot? Molly tilted her head back, a defiant smirk on her face. Servants know everything about a house, especially the secrets. This here's my 5th maid's job. I work long enough to get the lay of things, then I cut loose with all the cash I can carry. Now I'm thinking it's time I got myself some business partners. Maybe take up work cleaning a bank in the city. Knowles, what are you doing? Kit hissed. Molly ignored him and continued. The Windsors never cared about me, and I don't care about them. She tried not to imagine the look on Penny's face as she said this. The way I see it, you two are the comeuppance they got coming. Stubbs grinned as if the idea of being the arm of cosmic justice appealed to him. There's a little key in Master Windsor's waistcoat, she said. It unlocks the closet at the top of the stairs, and inside there's everything you could ever want. She held Stubbs' gaze in her own. Everything you deserve. She cast out this last word like a fish hook on the sea. Stubbs blinked at her, half hypnotized. The monocle had slipped from his eye and was dangling from a chain on his lapel. He swallowed and nodded to Fig. Might as well check his coat, eh? Fig left Constance and searched Bertrand. Looks like she was telling the truth, he said, pulling a key from his pocket. You'll come with us, pet. Stubbs grabbed Molly's arm, pulling her up to her feet. And if it turns out you're lying, it'll be cadavers we search next. You gonna carry me up? She said, indicating her bound ankles. Stubbs rolled his eyes and nodded to Fig to cut her feet free. Molly felt a rush of circulation as the rope fell from her legs. She watched closely as Fig slid the knife back into his belt, only a few inches away from her hands. The two men led Molly up the staircase. She truly did not know what would be waiting for them inside the room, but she hoped it would be enough to distract them, at least for a moment. When they reached the top of the stairs, Stubbs took the key and slid it into the lock. "After you." He tipped his hat, swung the door wide. Molly took a breath and stepped into the room. And with that, we have to stop.